Big Run finally happened, and it was awesome. From the sky changing color to the hub getting foggy, the game really conveys what Big Run is all about right off the bat. The Grizzco helicopter's even circling the hub, which it never does. I don't believe that helicopter above the building was there either. But probably my favorite thing about this event is the way it's been advertised in-game. There's posters all over the place announcing that Big Run is happening, and the way that they're placed everywhere really adds to that sense of urgency. They're all over the hub, overtaking the regular ads on the TV, and they're all over the Grizzco lobby, both on the outside and on the inside. Even the warning lights are on. It's all these little details that create that sense of panic. But let's focus back to the posters that seem to be the main form of advertising in this event. In a previous video, I mentioned that Eeltail Alley has an ad for a bike shop in Splatsville, and that advertisement used a cost-efficient printing method, in which black ink is printed on colored paper, to achieve the effect of a two-color advertisement. Now Grizzco seems to be doing the exact same thing with these ads. Both the red one and the purple one use black ink on colored paper, which is also why the black ink doesn't look very dark. That is the downside of using this method of printing, but there's no doubt it saves a lot of money. The paper itself is very thin and cheap as well. In the first reveal of these posters over on Twitter, we can see that the posters are slightly transparent because of how thin they are. And as we explored in the Grizzco video, Mr. Grizz will do anything to save money as efficiently as possible. A great example of this is the uniforms having duct tape on the arms and legs to prevent water from leaking in. It's honestly really cool to see how these quick and dirty solutions produce very efficient results. Anyway, the actual designs of the posters are really great. The Kohozuna one especially uses a lot of clever design principles. The text in the middle of the poster, for example, creates a very unique stylization of the words Big Run. They have the same amount of characters, and each corresponding character has a distinct similarity to the actual letters in the words Big Run. The designers for this game are pretty much masters at making unique yet familiar characters. The Return of the Mammalians trailer gave us a taste of that stylization too, by the way. Back to the layout though. It's very unique in that 2/3 is visual information with the intention of grabbing attention, while the rest of the poster is just text and a call to action. It's very common to divide an advertisement in thirds, and it was honestly done really nicely here. The Kohozuna art, by the way, is so good. Like, Grizzco has a history of delivering the best art when it comes to those cross-hatching sketches, and the fact that they didn't go with that overly shaded style really demonstrates the awareness of whoever designed this. Adding shading to the king would just look too busy, and that would risk the ad being ineffective. But the way it was done with purely line art is a great way to show minimal detail while still showing the volume of the character. The big text at the top I assume is supposed to say danger, or something like that at least. It would make sense since the magenta and purple stickers have the exact same characters. Ultimately, it seems like the Kohozuna poster was the basis for all the other designs in this event. Like the Big Run text was used on this poster here, and was translated into its own sticker here. These symbols, which I assume are representing the phone number, are also on the smaller sticker. Now here's where it gets interesting. The small characters next to the phone number are exactly the characters on the bottom of the Big Run text here. But why is this so significant? It's because the spacing in the words are different, despite using the same characters. This word doesn't even use the O character anymore. In graphic design, there's a technique known as Greeking, which essentially is just putting dummy text that doesn't mean anything into a body of text. This is also often referred to as lorem ipsum. This is done to get the composition of the design down when the actual text isn't available yet. Now, here's an interesting piece of information that relates to this. Recently, Rasicos translated an old 2015 interview with the Splatoon producer Nogami and the Splatoon art director Saita Inu. And in this interview, they are asked about deciphering the Inkling language, to which they respond, "It's probably for the best if you keep in mind that it's not very well thought through." To which Nogami adds, "I don't even know if the Inklings can read it, maybe they're just using it as a design." Now, there have been cases where the language actually does translate properly, although these instances tend to be after Splatoon 1. But it does seem like the devs tend to lean more towards using the text as design elements that don't really mean anything. But please do let me know what you think about this. The translation topic is super fascinating to me. Now let's move on to the other poster. Again, the design reuses a lot of assets from the Kohozuna poster. The Many Salmonids is a clever design choice here, since it illustrates what the event is about, while being efficient in conveying so. By the way, you can see the frying pan that they're holding on the animated ad on the TV, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. The slant of all the type is a subtle way to show movement as well, and then intentionally almost follows the natural flow of the pattern in the background. When I first saw the poster utilizing a pattern like this, I was instantly reminded of the Turquoise October's album art. While there's probably no connection between the two, it's great to see the designers in this game embrace the use of patterns as much as they have. Lastly, I want to briefly mention the advertising that takes over the TV screens in the hub. The ad in itself uses that classic Grizzco orange to border the usual ads, and the spinning Grizzco logo looks great without the usual frame that it has. And under that logo, there's a spinning shot of Kohozuna, presumably filmed by the Grizzco helicopter, and of course the top of the screen has the same text from the posters, as a headline or emergency alert. Now, the way the motion on the ads are presented is very interesting. While the other transitions are very fancy and professional, the Grizzco ad uses simple slide animations and PowerPoint transitions, and this is consistent with what we know about the Grizzco brand as a whole. Their advertising has always been as low budget as possible, from the one-color prints to their very first VHS ad using that same simple slide-in transition. They have always cut corners whenever possible, and that's honestly part of what makes the brand so attractive, ironically. In a world that has such polished ads that advertise to sell you something, Grizzco makes simple ads with the intent of helping you, the player, well, with an asterisk of course. Big Run wasn't so bad, and it made me a lot more invested in Salmon Run altogether. And maybe, just maybe, that was the intention all along.